Hi, I've never really talked about this, but I want to tell you the story about how I got my smile back. My name's Ali, and this was me a year ago. And this is me today. And to explain of how I went from what you just saw to this, I want to talk about sports. See, I think sports are amazing. They're collaborative, they're just pure fun and unpredictable. But sometimes what we like more than the sport is the athlete playing the sport. Athletes can be an embodiment of perseverance. They bring a peak level of skill and passion for the sport that they play. That just makes us feel something. And athletes have the ability to change the narratives in our mind from she can't do that to what can she do. And there's no sport that does that for me like Formula One does, and no driver does that like
Daniel Ricciardo stands on top of the podium.
So who is Daniel Ricciardo? He's an 8-time Grand Prix winner, known for his late braking and big personality on the track, and even bigger personality off the track. He's pretty much that one friend that you, when you're with, can turn anything into a joke, with his big smile, cheery attitude. But in 2022, Daniel wasn't doing so well on the track. He lost his edge, and halfway through the year, he was informed by his team that he wouldn't be racing for them in 2023.
Daniel Ricciardo will leave McLaren at the end of this season.
Obviously, we put in a lot of effort on both sides, but just hasn't worked the way we wanted. So the team's decided to make a change.
Everyone's favorite driver was left without a spot for 2023. What happened was Daniel just lost a big part of his identity, something that he'd worked so hard for. He wasn't a racing driver anymore. What does this have to do with me? Well, just like Daniel Ricciardo, I love to goof around, I love to laugh, but at the same time, I could be focused and daring and driven, get the pun. And just like Daniel, in 2022, I wasn't doing too well. I was just coming off dealing with some health issues, was dealing with family problems, and just being a full-time student, I just burnt out. And that's what led to, well, this. I failed at school and I was forced to sit out one full academic year. And just like Danny Rick, I lost a big part of my identity, something that gave me a lot of self-worth. I wasn't a student at a globally ranked university. A big aspect of my sense of self was gone. So I started having panic attacks. And as you can imagine, they're not really fun. And day after day, I started to smile less, and I eventually lost the ability to smile. Now, at this point in time, Daniel Ricciardo and I are pretty much the same person. And while I wasn't doing too hot, here's how Daniel dealt with it. As fun or cool as it sounds to compete in something else, the truth is, mentally, I'm not there yet. I'm still so engaged in this, and I think a bit of time out of a seat will probably do me good. Now, here's a guy at the peak of motorsports, opening up so vulnerably that he needs space. And that just got me thinking, if a larger-than-life person says that, well, what would I say? So I started to kind of ask myself these questions. Do I need space from being a student? Don't I owe it to myself to try to find meaning in who I am outside of a classroom? But I didn't know where to start. But see, here's where Daniel helped me. He talked about his life outside of racing, and he gave me something that I'd kind of been depriving myself of. He gave me hope. At that moment, I realized that my hope that tomorrow's promise for a better future had to be greater than the fear of yesterday's pain repeating itself. See, Daniel still believed in his ability to perform. Even though he'd lost that part of himself, he was still a goofy, fun guy, always with a beaming smile. He was honest with himself. He could separate between who he was on the track and who he was off it. So I had to go out and get some separation myself. I had to try and find a new sense of self, one that was more rooted in who I was authentically, not just with the school I went to or the grades I got or my major. I needed to be me. I was a little scared at first. Then I started thinking of who I was before school. Well, I was a son. I was a brother. I was a friend. I owed it to my mom and my sisters and my support group around me to be there for them. I found meaning in my ability to be dependable and reliable and just being there for people. And slowly I started to regain some confidence. I got a job that I loved, that I had people want me to succeed in it. I ran a marathon. I pushed my mind and my body to unimaginable limits just for the pursuit of a challenge. I found more meaning in the 9 months away from school than I did in the past 5 years in a classroom. And if it wasn't for Daniel Ricciardo, I wouldn't have gotten to that starting point of separating who I was. Daniel let me be myself. And this past week, he just got a seat back in F1. See, his patience, his attitude wasn't in vain. He let me in on one of his lowest moments, and he never lost a smile through the process, and he helped me find mine again. So here's what I learned. Look at someone you admire, someone who excites and inspires. It could be anyone. Let them be someone you could relate to. For me, it was Daniel and his duality. He was intense but loose, free but focused, and I saw myself in that, and just copy them. Whenever you're in a new situation, and you don't know how to react, just ask yourself, how would they react? Use them as a roadmap to get to where you want to be. And along the way, you'll be able to add things that make you uniquely you. And if you do that long enough, you end up with a version of yourself that takes the best elements of the things that gave you hope and the best elements of yourself to be something completely new. Because that's what role models are here to do. They struggle and succeed to make our struggles feel a little less daunting. So use them as a roadmap, because one day you could be a role model to someone else. I hope that helps, because it got me to where I needed to be. And ever since then, I can't stop smiling.